Okay. This is the Affordable Housing Committee meeting on Monday, August 4th at 6:30 at the Mashpee Town Hall. I'd like to call the order. I'm Walter Abbott, Chairman.
Alan Isbitz.
Bruce Willard.
Marie Stone.
Okay. We've got our minutes, and we should either, do I have any omissions or corrections, or do I have a motion to accept them?
I so move.
Second.
I have a second. Yes, I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So done. We really messed up because the first meeting in July, we should have had an election of the chairman and a clerk, although the clerk has no real duties. So I'm going to open the floor to nominations for chairman.
Nominate Bud Abbott.
I'll second that nomination.
This is a permanent position for me, I think.
Want to call a vote?
Yeah, I'll call a vote. Can I say no? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we need a clerk. Doesn't have a lot of duty because she does all our work, does a terrific job for us. So, but we need to at least have,
Is Berkeley the clerk?
I think he was. Should we just name him again?
I would move that Berkeley be...
That'll teach him not to be here on time.
Nominated as the clerk.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Berkeley
Aye.
is clerk. All right.
Is there a vice chair or what?
No, you don't use that. I think all we have is the chairman and the clerk.
Okay.
I'd like to make a comment along that line. We'll go on for another year. Next year, you may not have the same thing. I'll talk more about it when we talk about the selectmen's meeting. But I have never come away from anything so discouraged in my life. If I do not see action from the town of Mashpee, its officials and other people, within the next year, I will resign, for sure, come June. All right? Because that was very discouraging, and I was very unhappy with things that went on there, both truth and non-truth at the meeting. Okay, so I'm not going to dwell on that. But, old business. This is the most important thing we have to do tonight. That affordable housing production plan, I hope you've looked through it enough, or I have looked through it, and I haven't, and I've talked to Tom some about it, and I have, Tom Fadula, and I don't have any problems. I think he did a good job there, and unless you guys have any other comments that should be made, I'd like to get a motion to accept that and get it approved, and I'll send off to Tom tonight that we've done it, because he's meeting tomorrow night with the planning board, and he wants to get the 3 signatures, which is mine, the planning board, and the board of selectmen. So he wants to get those so he can get this into the state.
I would just say that, as I said at the selectmen meeting, that I thought Tom did a good job of updating the numbers and bringing them up to 2014 statement of need as reflected by the 2010 census and the additional information that the Cape Cod Commission and U.S. Department of HUD had available. Yeah. So I thought it was a good statement of the need.
Yeah, even though I think the selectmen don't like to take Cape Cod Commission numbers. At that meeting, they weren't, I didn't like that thrust that they had on that thing, but they need to wise up and find out that they actually have, for your information, they actually have affordable housing committee or whatever it is under the Cape Cod Commission, and they have one guy in there that's been super. He's retired, but they haven't let him off the hook. They've got him sort of back deck working for him, and he is one super guy on affordable housing. He's been helpful to us. He's still with data numbers. The whole Cape is very proud of that guy with the work he's done up there. So I think.
You want to say who it is?
What's his name? I should say what's his name.
Yeah, who is he?
Paul Rakinskis.
Paul Rakinskis. I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but.
And he's done a really credible job of aggregating the information available on the Cape.
Yes.
And comparing what the various towns are doing, fostering seminars so that different towns can share what they're doing on the Cape. And he's been a good advocate and a very objective in his assessment of the numbers, the factual circumstances around housing. And he did just retire, as Bud say, but he's now, still consulting for the
He's still consulting. some of you may
I think
remember.
I met him last week. We
You
had
remember-
a roundtable for affordable housing up at the.
Yeah, he would
Probably,
definitely be part
he
of
runs them all through the Cape, these things.
Yeah.
I talked with Michelle Springer, if you remember that name at all. I know you do, and I do. And she was on this committee at one time, and she works up there, and I asked her whether she was taking a position. And no, she is not, but she does have a promotion in there, I guess, to a better position. And she told me how they're using Paul at the current time, and his slot has not been filled. We've, like seminars and stuff we put on the state, he's did it. We ran one ourselves here. This committee put on a seminar on cottage housing, a newer concept for affordable housing kinds of things that we were looking forward to on 209 Old Barnstable. We thought we might think about using it there. And we ended up bringing in some fellows from Rhode Island who have developed this in several sites in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And they gave us a presentation on it. And if you ever want to hear some about it, on our town website, there's a link to that seminar that was held, and you can hear that whole it was a one-day session, and you can hear that whole session on there about what that's all about, you know. And we haven't discarded that idea. When we go out to some company to do something with 209 Old Barnstable, we'd like to mention it and see what they think, you know, get some feedback on that. So, where was I going? Yeah.
Cottages
Yeah,
for
no.
affordable housing.
Yeah. Okay, so we're back to the plan. Do we have any trouble accepting this the way it is?
I certainly don't.
Okay, not hearing any, I'll accept the motion to accept the affordable housing and planning production plan as submitted to us in August.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I will put together something to get it off to Tom tonight, so he'll have it for his meeting tomorrow.
My only question was, did you want, I did find out it was 52 units that are in our plan. Did you want that numbers anywhere in here?
On yours, there is, it is in there.
The number? And I think
Yeah,
the last time
but
I
I-
was here, you had asked for.
Yeah, it is in there, I
confirmation.
saw it in there. But we are going to discuss that some, when we get down to when you're talking time, we talked to somebody else, and I got her card here, I'll mention her name, after the selectmen's meeting. She came to the selectmen's meeting. And from her, we got some information, be it correct or not, you know, about that development thing, okay? And I'll bring it up when we get to your section,
Sure,
all right?
sure.
But yeah, it's in there. All the numbers have, you know, been upgraded. We had 277 was our number. That went to 298 now through the state sort of giving us more units that we didn't think we had, okay?
I think there was some confusion at the selectmen meeting when we were there about what counts on the subsidized housing inventory that the state uses.
Yeah.
And in 40B housing, if you have, which requires 25% low, if it's a 40B low-income project with even 25% low income housing, if that gets built, the entire 100% gets counted toward the subsidized housing inventory, even though 75% isn't strictly speaking low, but it's contributing in an environment that fosters the 25%, so they count it all. It was
And that's the situation with Mashpee, it is Mashpee Village, what is it? Main Street Village.
Main Street Village,
right around the corner from us over here. There's really 6 units that have deed restrictions on them, and it is 25% of the total in there. So we're picking up like 20 units or 24 units we picked up for that, which we weren't really originally including in our production plan. We were looking at the 6, not 24. So that raised it some.
And that was a concession, I believe, to the cities and towns that were concerned about their ability to make the 10% goal. That was basically an encouragement to foster projects that would contribute to the low-income housing problem. Even if it wasn't 100%, it would still contribute to the low-income housing problem in their area.
So the figures you're just mentioning, Bud, are all within that 298.
Yes.
That's the updated, our best
Right.
figure, right?
Right.
As of
And
now.
I'll talk a little more about that when we get to the
Okay.
about the selectmen's meeting, because there was a question they asked and they were right, and I gave some other numbers to them, which you guys haven't heard from me, okay? So I will mention those. Okay, did we vote? Yes?
We did, he motioned a second?
It's on the table, I
Yes.
believe, yes.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so done. I'd like to take a minute at this time, I think for your benefit, Tom, and this is off the cuff. I had planned something earlier on to, when two of you would be here maybe, and I've now put it away, but I can do it off the top of my head pretty well. Back a while ago, this committee was being sort of on its own, dissolving itself. People were going away and dropping off, and the committee was down to probably one person. So they solicited some people to sign up for the committee, which I did. And that's probably about 6 years ago. And we had one returning member from that, and we went out and recruited some more members. And we have also added some other members, as some have left, like Michelle Springer was here and she left. And so we added some more to it. At that time, that was around the 2010, and that was the date we were supposed to have a new production plan in, an update of the one we had, the major update, the 10-year update to it, even though it's been just 5 years since they had produced the other one. So what this committee said, well, we have to learn. So this would be a good tool for us to learn. So we took that whole plan and worked very hard on it. The town hired one other guy into the planning department, but he didn't really work out that much. He did some, but not much. Tom Fadula did a lot, We worked all together. We worked with him to a great extent. And so we worked through that, and in doing that, we've learned a great deal about affordable housing in Mashpee. And like I mentioned at the meeting, that's also on a link out there on our site that you can look and see that document, okay? The map is out there as well that you can look at. So those things are linked out there, which we did. We achieved that as well. So in learning a lot about that, we were then said, well, where are we going to go? What can we develop? So we went to Tom and we asked him for a list of all of the town-owned land in town. So we took those lists and we divided up, and we all went through and we picked out parcels that had sufficient acres, and then we picked out some parcels that would sort of look like they were good potential for developing. Some were not. And couldn't be done. They were wetlands or something of that sort, So we did an extensive analysis of the land in town as to what could be used and that kind of stuff. From that, we came up with about, must have been about seven or eight parcels that we could look into. And we walked some of them, and walked to see where they were, and we investigated them some. And I pushed for 950 Falmouth Road to be our #1 project. Along the line, the town was looking to sell land and make some money. And that was a key parcel. They wanted to make $4 million off of it. Now, as it turns out, the way that parcel is in there, they probably could have only built 3 homes in there. We could build probably 30 apartments, but you probably only build 3 homes in there. So who were they going to sell for $4 million? They never could sell it. They couldn't get there with it. But it was withdrawn from this committee's use as a parcel. So we went to our second parcel, which was 209 Old Barnstable. And we were happy with that. That could produce for us also. So we're working with Joyce and Mayo, Tom Mayo.
And Horsley and Witten.
Huh?
And Horsley and Witten.
And they gave the contract to Horsley Witten from Sandwich to do a feasibility study there. But even before that, they solicited bids, and we got 3 bids in. We reviewed those bids. This committee said we liked Horsley Witten and eliminated 2 other bidders. One was totally out of the picture, the other one was possible. But we selected them. And then we participated in all meetings leading up to the actual thing. They brought in their plan and their timelines that are going to do things, the meetings they're going to have in between. And 2 members of this committee went to every meeting that was held with the town in relation to that feasibility study. And we commented on it and asked questions and that kind of stuff. So we worked pretty hard on it. And The net result was that thing really calls out 20 to 30 units could be put on that piece of land. They did 2 drawings of possible ways it could be developed. Not that you'd build them the way they were showing you, but that they could. And one of them showed 4 buildings, each with 6 units in them, 4 separate buildings with 6 units in, and it came to 24 units is what it happened to come to. They showed another one which was all one building, which had 24 units in it. Now, they just come up with 24. There wasn't anything significant. They could have made it 30. They could have made it 20. Go either way with it, all right? And so that was just sort of something for you to look at. That was all that was. So they've accepted that, but we never got to go further. We were trying to get some more action to go further on that, and we couldn't seem to get the town to do anything to proceed with it. And then with their land stuff that they were going through here, they decided that 950 was back in, and maybe we should put the 2 parcels together, and maybe that would be easier to get somebody to bid on it. Maybe we would get Tom Fadul calls 80 units between the 2.
80 he said 80 bedrooms.
80 bedrooms, yes, 80 bedrooms. And I don't know whether that's true or not. But what it did do is it pushed 209 Old Barnstable off 2 years that we did nothing. We've done nothing for 2 years, waiting to see on the other one. I had a meeting with Tom Mayo asking for the status of the feasibility study, and I was told it had already been awarded to Jose Witten, and they would be, they might have the results from that by the time we talked to selectmen. Now, at the selectmen's meeting, I found out that no, they hadn't had any meeting yet. As a matter of fact, it was supposed to be a meeting the next week after our meeting with selectmen. We've never been notified of any meeting, never been invited to a meeting. We're totally out of the picture on that feasibility study there. Not that we want to be, but that we were never asked, never invited to it. And I'm not sure where it's at. I almost like they hadn't yet really awarded it and told them to go do it. So I don't know where it's really at. I don't know what the truth is on that. You want to add something on that?
Just add on the 209 Barnstable Road history. When the Horsey and Witten came up with its plans for 2 ways to proceed on the site, they were really massing studies that would just give us an idea about how many units would build on it. They were not designs. At the same time, we were looking at a architect that we knew was making presentations in some of the Massachusetts seminars around the state, who had developed cottage housing, so-called, which is single-family housing, basically without the lot lines, and with parking that is combined for all the units so that it's more efficient. And the idea being they look and function like single-family housing, but they're not on their own lots, and they save some space by combining the parking. So that was the gist of it. Nicely designed. There's a cottage housing development in Concord that was presented. This is the presentation we made with the Cape Cod Commission. There was a two cottage housing developments in Rhode Island, where this architectural firm is from, on coastal towns, similar in size to Mashpee. And that was an illustrative example, not that we were pushing cottage housing, but an illustrative example of something attractive that would look compatible in town with what is there now, and could be one possibility for what could be done at 209 Barnstable. So that's all I wanted to say on that.
Yeah. Now 209 Old Barnstable has 2 groups of abutters. One is the Quasnet Condo Group, and the other one's Quasnet Estates. I've drafted the Quasnet Estate member here. He's on the board over there. So he wants to know what's going on. He wants to be involved and hear about it. But he also gives us good feedback that way. And they had written some letters to selectmen objecting to it. But he knows that something probably is going to be built there. So they would like to have some input into what's being built and developed there. So he's staying close to that, and that's fine, and we'd be glad to do that. I went to a meeting of the Quasnet Condo Association board, and gave them a presentation of the kinds of things we were just talking about for that, and said, we're a ways off yet. We're not here. Here's what we're thinking of. And it was a mixed reaction to it. One fellow was in Florida, and he said, you're turning Mashpee into another Brockton. Now, wherever that came from, I don't know, but so you could have crossed that guy off. You weren't going to get him on your side. Some of the others were okay. I think one's on the school committee that lives over there, and he seemed to be listening and okay. And I had one member call me on the phone afterwards and thanking me for at least coming and telling them about it. And don't let the people with negative attitudes there deter you. So I did get some feedback. It wasn't unanimous over there that they wouldn't go for it. I think if we proposed something to them and showed what it was and explained it, that I think we'd get a majority maybe, and that would go with it, hopefully. But there was always this 30 number. Are you familiar with Great Cove? Over by the high school, we put in 10 units over there. It was done through
Bright Cove.
Bright.
Isn't Great, not Great Cove.
It's Great Cove, I think. It was Breezy Acres.
Breezy Acres,
was the 9 units.
Yeah.
But on the other 10 they put in there, they had to give it a different name. The state required them to give it a different name, so I think they called it Great Cove, I think. I'm not quite sure. But that was developed through the Mashpee Housing Authority, with Hack from Hyannis involved in it. I attended the meetings, the zoning meetings, the hearings, and everything. I did listen and participate best I could with it. But that was gone through there, and that kind of turned out to be financially a disaster. The units came in costing too much per unit. And so that left officials in the town and the housing authority saying, we can't build 10 units. It's going to cost too much if we build only 10 units. And that's where the 30 number originally came up in town. It was given to Joyce Mason, and she latched onto it, and everybody decided you couldn't do a project here unless you had 30 units in there. Don't know if that's really true, but that's where that 30 number came from, which is okay. Those 10 got built, and they're good. They're rented out fully. We have a wait list, matter of fact, over there and stuff. That's some of the kind of the background to that, and we've reconstituted ourselves, but we've been active. We haven't been an idle committee, but we have also in like 6 years, and absolute things we have is habitat. I go to all of their meetings where they're requesting. We always come up with some land for them, but they are also very busy further out the Cape now with multi-units on sites, and they can't handle too many at one time. So they have 2 units that we already gave them, one on Strawberry Avenue or whatever it is over there, and the other one on Orchard Street. And they're ready to, it's all the sign-offs, everything's ready to go with it, but they're not prepared yet to tackle signing up people to give equipment, bring in equipment, materials, supplies, and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't look like it's going to take off too soon. I'm guessing that will be a 2016 project, a completion. It may start before then, but probably 2016 that they will complete those 2. But those are onesies. They're wonderful, but they're onesies. We never get the 33 a year, and that's the number in the thing, and we have to do 33 in a year. And so like I told them, I said, 2015, we have nothing to add. And then someone said, do we lose any? And yes, as a matter of fact, in 2015, we're going to lose 3. So for 2015, we're going to go -3. So we're not making 33. We'll be -3. In reality, we know we can't hit all of that. There are bigger projects, and we'll talk about later. The Wampanoag has the one going over from back here with 52 units. Mashpee Commons has been going on forever. We have 96 in there. We have 0 that they've contributed so far. And I was working with them 6 years ago. And I meet with them regularly. Right now we're up to when they get going in this thing over here, and you'll notice that they work, stall, So nothing get boom, 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 really banged out. When they finally get in there and do something, we'll have 13. I'm anticipating that'll be a 2016 also. You know, there'll be 13 units there. So we're a long way from meeting any goals.
You're right, if I just, I'm assuming because we're live to record when
Yes.
microphone.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Just real quick, I just
Go
wanted
ahead.
to clarify.
Sure.
First of all, I'm very excited to actually be working with you.
Okay.
So, as far as the meeting went, now obviously I'm new, so
Yeah, I know.
I can't speak to any of that.
Yeah.
But I can tell you going forward,
Yeah. Okay.
what I'd like to see, because I had a lot of questions after you left.
Yeah.
And I agree with you about the Mashpee Commons. Here we have, they got all this affordable housing,
Yeah.
but none of it's being built. So that does us no good. And when is that going to be built?
Oh, no.
I just got dead air when I asked that question. So I guess there's no time.
No, there's a master plan, but they don't ever adhere to the master plan. It keeps changing.
Yeah, and I'm not even aware of, I haven't been told to this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
I've been asking a lot of questions, so
Yep.
sooner or later, hopefully I'll get some answers. But, so having that, the next phase, at least this phase completed in, if it's 14,
13, I think. What is that?
13,
Yeah.
okay, so that'd be nice, but you're absolutely right, it seems like the stall all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So but one of the things that I was not sure that came out of the meeting was, and I think reading the feel of the other selectmen, or some of the selectmen, was understanding what we have right now, a full accountability of all the affordable housing
Yeah.
in Mashpee, but spelled out like more on a matrix of, here's a spreadsheet. And also, if you can't, I know you can't account for they get taken over by the bank and sold out. I get that. That's, that could happen at any point, 1, 2, 3, a year at any point. But knowing exactly which units and how many points or credits you get for affordable housing for each unit, and if there's an expiration. So that's one of the things that I just became aware of. Some of these have an expiration. Is that true?
3 of them.
Okay, so.
Most of them, they should not.
So,
But it happens to be, on the map, we designated different kinds of ones, and there's some ones there called CCCHOR. Those are special-like units that do, in fact, expire. Now, what I got, which you're probably talking you'd like, that came from Tom Fadula. That's a matrix.
okay.
And it's got, and we can get you, Jen can make you a copy of that, too. I scratched on it some, but it's still usable. It's got the designations of them. Unfortunately, the state did a poor job of that this year, and they didn't put necessarily addresses on everything. They'd say, they say Main Street. Well, where,
Well, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah,
Look at that.
So that's why the best thing is that map.
Yeah, and the map was great, but I
there is
guess from their points was they weren't sure about, like, if you project it out, 5 years from now,
Yeah.
with what we have on the table, what does it look like? And now, is this on this affordable housing production plan? Is that what that is?
Yeah, except it doesn't, I don't think in there it called out about these 3 that were expiring, and I don't think it called out with things like, Mashpee Village?
Yep.
That's our biggest. That's 145 units in there. That's good till the year 2094.
Now,
So
is
I
that
wasn't-
date on there?
Yes, that's on here.
Okay, because I noticed there's a few other dates that.
There's another unit
Nothing.
that with another address that's kind of phony, but it says 2037. I don't know why, but most of them have PERP. That's forever.
Okay, so that's,
All right.
I think, that came up in
Yeah.
all of us, we're talking at the meeting.
Yeah.
We weren't aware of any of those dates, and that's what we were trying to figure out. If you look at this, I'm all about being I'm a very strategic thinker.
Okay,
So I'm looking at this like right now as, help me help you.
okay,
So I'm looking to have a better understanding of what we have in the town now,
okay.
what's the time frame we're gonna have them?
Yeah. Most
Then-
of them are really forever, you know.
And they could be, and again, I understand the drop off of
Yeah.
occasional, that happens. But knowing that and say, okay, where's your top 3 priority? Locations, destinations, the plan, like you mentioned about 24 units, maybe 30 units. What are those locations we can kind of almost, and I understand that the whole idea is you guys are going far down that road with that one property, and then the
They went
town
away.
made you switch it to 2 properties, and
Yeah.
basically all the work you did to that point. That's very frustrating.
It is.
I felt the frustration sitting in the chair, and
Oh,
I'm sure it's very, frustrating to see that.
Yeah.
But we are where we are.
Yeah.
So now I'm like just thinking, okay, almost like a clean slate. Let's see what
In
we
theory,
have.
that 298 number should be there forever, and we add to it. Now, that happens to be, there's a few little quirks in there, the 3 that we're going to lose this year. But they're a very special case. They're like the foreclosure thing, you know. So you don't know about some of those.
Right.
And the only other one, and interesting, I don't know whether you knew this or not, but you know that the Great Cove community, I was telling you about the 10 units, they expire in 2044. Now, I'm not going to be around at that time, so I'm not too worried about that.
So, I mean, does it make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah,
for? I'm just-
I think we give you a copy of this. I think that may
And
answer
even-
90% of your
And
questions.
if possible, is that Tom that could?
Yes.
Could they add to that as far as the actual addresses instead of just saying?
Well, that's where the map comes in.
Yeah,
Could
and
we have
again, I'm looking for one status or accountability
Yeah.
of affordable housing, so we can say, okay, here it is. Here's the locations, here's the addresses, here's the expirations.
Yeah.
And again, if you can make like a 3 to 5 year plan, okay, Mashpee Commons is gonna have 13, let's say by 2016? Maybe it'll be 15, but, that'd be
Maybe.
13
Yeah.
units, right?
Yeah.
So you get 13 units now, and then all of a sudden you can say, okay, 2016, 17, maybe we can look at the dates and see if they're drawn out. Are they held to a timeline? I don't believe they are. From my understanding, those things
No.
could be just out there till
It,
they
with,
deem
with the
that
land,
next phase.
I mean, you're already, from the land distribution stuff we've got going on, you know that there isn't a lot of land available to do things with. So we need Mashpee Commons, for one thing, who had 96, that's a big chunk. You know.
Absolutely.
And after that, we've got 2 pieces of land, 950 and 209. And if you look at that distribution thing that committee has been working on, what's going to be affordable, what's going to be reserve, what's going to be conservation, and all that kind of stuff. There's only 2 parcels on that, under affordable, that are developable. None of the others are even usable, except for maybe a habitat house that will go on something less than an acre, less than a half an acre. Most of those parcels out there are a quarter to a half acre, which you can't build a house on unless you're habitat.
So under that meeting that was just held last week
Yes.
here regarding available
Yes.
lots, if you will, are there any on there that you guys have flagged, or your committee has flagged to say, we would like those for affordable, 1 or 2 or 3 of those for affordable housing?
Well, and we sat down and had a meeting. Alan and I went and met with Tom and went over that list. Alan was particularly concerned about all those ones going into conservation. And when we went through that, there's one whole page, that's all conservation. After we went through with it, we didn't see anything on there that could be usable by the affordable housing. That every one of them,
There were 2, actually, we did, I thought we
not
made.
in conservation though, that was up
not-
under
you're right,
reserve.
You're right, yep.
Under reserve, we found a couple of parcels in reserve that may be able to be used.
Okay, so the reserve was going to be held off anyway, so that's
Yes,
a good thing. But
yes.
I guess my thought would be like, okay, here's where we are now. These are affordable housing, ideal locations.
Yes.
Where are they at each step of the process? Some Are we ready to write,
We
feasibility
could
study?
produce a document like that, I think. This committee could produce a document along that line.
Well, except I think our problem is that there's some staff work that's implied in that effort to pull all that together, and the staff work, I think, is a little bit elusive in terms of how we can pull that together.
What do you mean by that?
Wouldn't the clerk
To
do
identify the expiration dates that are appropriate.
No, on these have expiration date. This thing gives all the expiration dates.
Looks like some of them are blank though, or
No.
unless they just
No.
not expire.
They're
Well,
perpetual.
there are
PERP.
There are two kinds of dates that are of concern here, in my view. One is there's an affordable housing restriction that the state requires for all, and as well as HUD, for all developments that go on the affordable housing, the subsidized housing inventory, the list they keep. And those are the ones that are deed restricted for a certain period of time. That's one expiration date, but the subsidies expire earlier than that, usually within 20 years or 15 years, and they have to be renewed. Well, the renewal isn't necessarily automatic, so you really need to keep track of two things: what your expiration date is legally and what your expiration date is financially. And normally you have to be doing something 2 to 3 years in advance of the financial expiration of the financial subsidies in order to line up subsidies and get a renewal without having a discontinuity and some family hardships, in fact, along the way. So you need to keep track of both of those dates.
You're actually making my point, what I was going to get down to as far as,
Right.
That's exactly the reason why I'm saying, having a whole list broken down with any of those possibilities. So now it's like, okay, here it is right now, but anybody could step right in and say, okay, this is where we stand. These are your hot 5 locations that you want to develop for affordable housing with the potential of how many units. What would you like to see as your projected timeframes? Kind of like draw out a plan, a pipeline of opportunities, and then say, okay, now as selectmen, we can sit there and look and say, okay, affordable housing, here's what we have. These are the 5 locations that we would like to develop or look at, and it would bring us this many units. Our projected time frame, even if you're saying 3 to 5 years out, I mean, that's just realistic, I'm assuming.
Right.
Some of that we I know what you're saying. We can do something. We can't necessarily say how many units you would need feasibility study sometimes on the land.
Well,
There's something like
it might be a range. I totally understand.
Tom puts this whole thing when he starts to tell you that, for every bedroom you're putting in, you got to reserve 10,000 square feet over here. So other land is being reserved over here, which is not even adjacent to this land, in order for you to put a bedroom in this one.
And also on that chart, if I could be so bold to ask, you talk about the points or credits. There's some that are double credits, if you will, or something like that,
I
or
don't think so.
is it double credits?
No, I don't think there's any double credit. No, there's no.
Is there,
I would say the only place that comes in, and I was going to bring it up in a minute, the Dds Group Homes. That's for the disabled.
yeah,
And we have 5 group homes in town. They each have 4 bedrooms in it. Each bedroom counts as a unit. So for that group home, for a group home with 4 bedrooms in, we get 4. We get credit for 4.
okay.
We have no control over that. If that agency that has that group home, they own the group home, and there's no deed restriction on it, they can sell that home and walk away from that group home anytime they want to, and we'd lose it. Or they may come and buy another house in Mashpee, make it a group home, and we pick up 4 maybe, or 3, or whatever it is. So that's a very iffy thing.
But out of all those locations, if you also had the number of units that we receive,
Yeah.
so then we know, okay, here's the,
But if you total this, if you go through and total the numbers they have here, you'll come up with that 298.
okay.
It's there.
I think Tom has done Tom Fidel has done a very good job
Yeah.
of tallying where we stand on the subsidized housing inventory that DHCD has. And if we haven't reconciled completely with DHCD in terms of our numbers, we're within a couple units of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we
And he
understand.
has brought out that production plan the Wampanoag stuff, the common stuff, looking forward for what you were looking for, the look forward stuff is in that production plan.
Oh, that's what I'm saying, so that's in that, in
Right.
that
Yeah,
plan.
there won't be a lot of it in
Yeah.
there. There won't be things like, I haven't brought it up recently, I think I did with you. The town gave the VFW a chunk of land to build on, gave a
Very well,
99-year lease or something or other. They can't get any money, haven't been able to do anything. So somebody has come to us and said, why don't you make affordable housing on it, build something on it, and put a meeting room in the basement? Now, we don't know that we can do that, or we don't know if that's legal, but there would be an opportunity to make another set of rental apartments on a piece of land that's there, that's not being used, and I don't think they're going to be able to use it.
They have a very similar setup, actually. I was at one in Brockton. Brockton actually had a
Okay.
whole housing, affordable housing community,
Yeah.
and there's actually a veterans hall all the way down the end,
Uh-huh.
and you got to drive right through the whole.
Yeah. And we were going to investigate that one with ours, and we'll talk to the guy that I had already talked with on the VFW. He's moved, he's gone to Texas.
Right.
So he's not around
Yeah.
anymore,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I don't know, I'd have to find out who's now the leader, and
Yeah, I
And
wonder
talk
if that'll
about
be just sitting out there for a while before.
yeah. Some of these things we can look at and say, yeah, we probably could put some affordable housing on it. But you also got to remember how many times are you going to go out there and start developing and spend money? I mean, all these are going to cost money to do these. Now,
Right.
you'll get money from HUD and all these other places and whatnot, but,
So I guess the most important thing would be, I would like to see that, if you prioritize your, like, pipeline, and again, if it's on the plan, that's great, but like, okay, these are the 5 locations that we want to hone
okay.
in on. These are, let's.
We can take a look at that.
Focus on this, and what is your projected timeline? Have you done a feasibility study on any of them? You mentioned about a feasibility study's out, but you haven't heard.
The only feasibility study we have is 209 Old Barnstable.
And that has not come back yet?
Yeah, it's back.
It has been back.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, it's back. It's
that
completed.
deemed the site to be feasible to develop somewhere in the range of 24 units.
That was done 2 years ago.
Right.
And it's just,
In 2013, it was completed.
so at this point, it's just sitting out there?
Just sitting there waiting for 950 to complete and see if there's an interest to combine the two.
You know, we can't issue RFPs.
Right.
We can't spend money, bring money in, all that kind of stuff. We need to get someone to issue an RFP. We need a town to issue an RFP to develop it and call out, like, and you do have one now. It's, like we mentioned in the meeting, it covers 2 pieces. It covers that and 950 Falmouth Road. And I think what we were talking about, well, maybe can we make it a either or both, go out? Which way do you want to bid on it, And then we'll see what comes back on the feasibility study. If 950 Falmouth Road feasibility study, when it comes in, if it says preliminary, it's okay, then we need to go back to the state and ask them for another, I don't know, $15,000 to $20,000 to complete the feasibility study. So then it'll take time to go through the state and do all that, and they'll come back and say, yes, here's the money for you to go do it. And
Meanwhile-
then we have to put it out to bid again to somebody to do that feasibility study completely. It's going to go to the same guy in Sandwich, we're sure of it, but it'll take time. It could be 6 to 12 months to get around that,
Okay.
Meanwhile, we're missing funding rounds, you understand, every...
Well, yeah, and I definitely got that at the selectmen's meeting too. And again, I'm trying to put my head around all this
Yeah.
in such a short period of time, but at the same time, I'm frustrated already just by, I can see, I'm very good at reading faces, so I understand the frustration.
Yeah.
But again, I'm trying to help me understand a little bit where we are and where we want to get, what we want to get to at the same time. So like right now, we have a meeting coming up on Monday. So is that something that we need to look at? The affordable housing production plan? Is that something that?
Oh, yeah, you guys have to sign off on that, yeah.
All right, because I'm not sure, I can make sure it's on the agenda, but if that's something.
Tom is the key. He's the leader. It's his
Okay.
plan. Comes from a planning department, really.
All right,
We did a heck of a lot of work on it and helped and did all we could with it. But we're not the originators of it, really.
all right. So I'm gonna check with Tom and see if
So-
that's ready to go for us to look at on Monday.
Yeah, and it should be.
Otherwise, it's,
Yeah. And you'll go another 2 weeks or something, yeah.
Is it-
correct.
As I understand, if there is an expedited route here, it's what we're doing tonight, what we did tonight to approve it.
Yes.
It's going to the planning board tomorrow, is it? Or Thursday?
Yes. That's what he told me, yes. He said,
Okay.
I told him I would get him a,
And if they approve it, then it can
a
go to
statement.
the Board of Selectmen.
I'm just thinking what time, let's get the ball rolling and,
yeah.
you know, if it's piece by piece, it's,
There's one more critical link here. Once it's approved by the Board of Selectmen, somebody actually has to send it to DHCD for their approval,
We
which
sat
seems
here
not
for
to
over a
have...
year and a half thinking it had been sent in. And all of a sudden, I went to a meeting with the Habitat guys, and they listed in their documentation that we didn't have an approved plan. And we were sitting here, thought we had an approved plan. We thought it was sent in.
I'm sorry, DHC.
Department of Housing and Community Development, which is part of Economic and Community Development, the Secretary of Economic and Community Development Executive Department in the state government.
Somewhere the plan had gotten lost in town and never got sent in. So, and we all thought it did. We thought we had an approved plan.
I don't think that I would be out of turn here or exaggerating too much by saying that that was one of our more frustrating
Yes.
moments when we realized that 2 years of work had not gone anywhere.
Yeah.
I would,
And we stumbled on it. If it wasn't for Habitat putting it in their document that we didn't have it, and I'm saying, what do you mean we don't have it? Sure we have it. And so I got him to go check with the state and see whether we did. No, we didn't. Never been sent to him.
so does that also get submitted through Tom as well?
Yes, he should. I think he should be submitting it, or whether he goes,
To
don't you?
Tom Fadula or Tom Mayo?
Fadula.
Oh, okay.
So I'm assuming it might go to,
The town manager submits it.
Maybe town
oh,
manager.
all right, but it would, I'm assuming this would be compiled by Tom Fadala, that he would submit it to the town
Yeah, he
manager.
should probably go to the town manager and say,
And
here's
that
our
might have been
approved
where the
plan.
breakdown was.
I think one of the
Yeah.
needs here is to clarify the staffing responsibilities for keeping this moving and not having things fall through the cracks.
That's what I'm wondering. And
Yeah.
that's-
If
the
you
only-
take-
If it goes from Tom to the town manager or assistant town manager, who does it?
When,
You know, what's the
you will be very surprised when you read that production plan, you get in there, there are objectives in there, and there are actions to be taken, and it's not just by Tom or by us. There's things that the selectmen have to do, there's things that the planning department has to do, there might be things the health department has to do. There are goals for other department units in there to take action on, and like I mentioned at the meeting, I don't think any of those actions basically have been done. Nobody's paying any attention to that document.
And again, I can't speak for that, but I don't know if
Well,
those
we-
actions were ever told to anybody. or
When you get over to look at it, be sure you look at those action items and the objectives and that kind of stuff, because I think they lead into some of what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, I hope I didn't
No, that's fine,
too
no,
much, and
no.
I'm looking forward to it, like I
We're-
said, and I'm looking forward to working with the
And we will
committee
get you,
And I think
Jen, later you can copy that for.
what Bud is saying, I think, is illustrative of the need to have some sort of a routine and regular collaborative effort among the different town committees and the town manager to track where are we in our efforts,
Yes.
and to make the commitment a real commitment with some depth.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm assuming you were talking about, you met with Housing Authority, right? That was your conversation with someone from the Housing Authority?
Which time?
After the Selectmen's meeting?
No. Oh, no.
Is that what you?
Just like me, yeah, well, yes and no.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, she happened to have been elected to
Right,
the directors there, but she is also associated with, you know who I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah.
And she told us some things, which I'll bring up later. She told us, which was a surprise to us, but I don't know if it's true or not, but we'll see.
Okay.
She'll tell us.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, so we kind of really beat that around, and some of you might have seen us on television, and
I had a couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of them is, to his point, who is responsible for executing the plan, is it Tom Padula, the planner? Because there's multiple responsibilities inside of it. Is he the overseer to make sure that those people are told or communicated to?
I don't want to speak for Tom, but my belief is that Tom is the overseer of that and whatnot, and should be following through on that.
Well,
If each one of the departments reads it and they says in here, the selectmen should be doing this kind of thing, and they signed off they were going to do it when they signed this thing, then I think there should be something happening there, and the feedback probably should go to Tom, because he's the keeper of the master.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out who keeps this document living, who
Tom
makes
Fadul.
sure it, doesn't wait for 2 years,
Tom. But of course, we don't redo the document, but it's updated every 5 years, and it's redone front to back every 10 years. But we're so messed up on our years now, I don't know how we're going to fall out on this thing, because we've usually been trying to tie the 10-year one into the census, the U.S. Census. So that's where you get a lot of these numbers from. So 2010 numbers were what we used in this plan originally. Now, we were late getting it into 2012 before we had finished it, but it never went in anyways. So now we're up to, he's got 2014 in the document. I don't know when the next one's due, whether we're 2019 or do we do 2020. I really don't know, but that's up to Tom.
My guess is we tie the next one into
The next
10-year
census.
plan, yeah.
I would think so.
2020.
That would make sense to me to do it that way.
My understanding was that Tom at one time had an assistant to help produce the affordable
He
housing
was just a
production plan.
contractor. Yeah.
Okay, a contractor.
Yeah.
And that for financial reasons or other reasons, that was discontinued.
Yeah.
And Tom has sort of implied to us that
He's got a lot of work to do.
Given all his other responsibilities, he doesn't have the staff capacity to maintain a full effort in this area. So I guess that's one of my concerns, is where does the effort come from, the town capacity to track this at a staff level?
But I don't also know whether he also calls upon the planning board to do things, because that's where he's bringing it tomorrow night to the planning
Right.
board meeting. So I don't know what the relationship is there, how much they do, whether they're just a sign-off guys or what.
Chain of command, I'm not sure myself. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
I can ask the questions, but I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
It does, but it's a little disappointing. I think we need a little more ownership behind it to make it a living document that we really.
But that's Tom's.
I've worked with many plans, and they tend to be written and then sit on a shelf and collect some dust.
You're right, you're right.
I'm not a fan of that.
I have to, our role is advisory, but I have to go to beyond, I think I have to applaud Bud for going beyond that and trying to have this committee be a catalyst to keep things moving and make others in the town, Board of Selectmen, town manager, aware of what the next steps could be to move ahead.
And we have given sessions at the senior center on what's happened to affordable housing in town, open it up to the public, come into the senior center to hear about those things. I have personally done presentations there for anybody that want to come in. Now, small turnout, but the ones that came were interested. Okay, let's get off the selectmen's meeting, I guess. Are the Yankees ahead or not? The warrant articles on funds for the Affordable Housing Trust, and maybe I came away and I said, I don't know what happened with that. I don't know where we ended up with it at that meeting.
Well, I don't know either. We sent a letter to the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, we did.
Advocating that the Affordable Housing Trust be funded to implement some of these plans that we're talking about in the housing production plan. In many towns, it's the Affordable Housing Trust that's the implementing body and the one that maintains the continuity through the use of CPA funds to issue RFPs, and with the CPA funds use it as gap funding to close the remaining gaps or help close the remaining gaps in a promising project. That's the kind of thing DHCD will take, for example, as a key indicator of whether the town or city, if it's a city,
is sufficiently interested in their subsidies to put up their end of it. And that's sort of expected. If you want the limited subsidies available from the state, then they want the town to come up and show that they are sufficiently committed to put up what they can afford to put up through CPA funds or regional home funds or whatever they have available to them to support a project. And then DHCD is very likely to feel with that kind of commitment they can put up the remainder or the key portion of the funds necessary for an affordable housing project to go forward. My guess is that's true at Mashpee Commons, for example, when the town agrees to do the infrastructure involved, like the road. That's a key indicator to DHCD to come up with the funding that Mashpee Commons needs for its affordable housing project. So those kinds of things have to stay coordinated, and there's a lot of, in my mind, intra-town communication. It needs to be coordinated to see that all these things fall in place.
We've been pushing that, since we've been here, that trust has been established, but they don't meet. They have never met. And we finally forced them, we have a member on it, and we forced it to actually try to have one meeting. If they had 2 meetings, I don't know about it. I know they had 1. So they don't really, they should be doing things. They should be working this stuff. Other communities have the trust also. Now the Paul we told you about from the Cape Cod Commission, we brought him in to talk to selectmen about some things. And he kind of informed the selectmen that he had never heard of an affordable housing trust to have established with the members that it had. The way ours is the 5 selectmen are on it. Now, why would you put 5 selectmen on it? I mean, they're going to get the approval anyways, but why you got to put 5 selectmen on it? And 4 others from outside of that. 1 from our committee, and I think 1 from finance, 1 from the Mashpee Housing Authority, and the other one at large, I think. So, but they haven't never done anything. They have no money. They are the guys, and matter of fact, those RFPs that we talk about, they're issued by them. But they don't ever meet. I don't know. And I think the towns just make them believe they're signing those things.
So quick question. You said that letter was submitted to the town, to the selectmen?
Yeah.
Which letter are we talking about?
Yes.
The one you started out with?
Oh, we had a resolution that we submitted, yes. Right.
Yeah, when was that? Like, while ago?
2 months ago.
Okay, so I'm just wondering if it was like,
July 8th. July 8th.
1 month.
Would you like a copy of it?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
And was it asking for something specifically? I guess that's what I would.
We were recommending something.
We were recommending.
I'll skip the whereases if it's okay. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Affordable Housing Committee recommends the Board of Selectmen approve the transfer and appropriation of these CPA funds to the Mashpee Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, which was created under MGL Chapter 44, Article 55C, to create, preserve, and support affordable housing at or below 80% of the area median income, and which body is therefore the appropriate body to proceed in an appropriately expeditious manner to pursue the development of future affordable housing on land identified by the town as suitable for such purpose.
Okay, is there a dollar figure in there?
No, but I believe there is a legislative guideline in CPA funds that a certain amount, minimum amount, has to be dedicated to affordable housing, and our concern was that
Tom Mayo said
statutory mandated amount be transferred to the Affordable Housing Trust so they can actually use it to move projects along.
Tom Mayo took this and they made up an article supposedly for the warrant in October. That's what I mentioned at the meeting. You know.
Okay, that's...
And that article had blank dollars in it, and Tom says he couldn't put the dollars in there yet because he has to wait for the state to say how much they're going to give us before they know how much we could do with it.
Okay, so if it's going to go in front of town warrant, that's what I was assuming that was going to be the case.
Can we ask Jan to
sure.
copy this for him?
Slide that over there. We'll just be making a pile for him. Yeah.
All right.
So it's the way that the thing should really work. They should have some money in there to be able to do it. We can't change the makeup, although down the road you might want to think about it. I don't think all 5 selectmen, or 5 selectmen? 5 selectmen, yeah, need to go all the time to every meeting that this trustees have, you know.
Right.
Most of them have 1. Some have 2. But most of them had 1 selectman on there.
But you're saying they only met once anyways, right?
Yeah, I only met once. I know of, okay? And I know that from our member who went to there, who tried to get him to meet, but he was frustrated too. All right?
Thanks.
So that's sort of the warrant article on Affordable Housing Trust. Right now, I can't tell you where it's going. Maybe Tom here will find out something from us to find out what's going to happen with it, but I don't think we can do any more than we've already done. Oh, part of the funds that could go, we have, in case you didn't know, we have some funds located at the Cape Cod Commission. Mashpee Commons put up about $350,000 on mitigation funds when they built over there, and they gave it to Cape Cod Commission to be used for affordable housings. I think it has some restrictions on it. I'm not positive. You have to have at least 2 or 3 units of affordable housing up on it in order to spend the money, something like that, So I don't know what the restrictions are on it, but they have it. But some of it's gone away already. The Housing Authority dipped into it already and took out some for Great Cove. We had that sprinkler system problem come up and whatnot, I think, and some of that came out of the CPC funds, and some came from Cape Cod, that kind of stuff. But there is still money there. I think about $250,000 sitting there. That could go into the trust, I think. Maybe it could be moved, depending on what the restrictions are and all that stuff. I don't know, but maybe.
I'll ask.
Huh? Okay, I'm going to move on to the land distribution project, and I will just summarize sort of. As we had mentioned last time, we said Alan and I would go sit down with Tom and we'd go over that list, and we mentioned it earlier. We've gone over it, and on the conservation ones, we didn't find anything in there of any size or any of that kind of stuff. This thing called reserve is a good category that we may have some things in there, and we marked it up, that might be able to be used by us. The ones they gave us 2, 950 Falmouth Road and 209 Old Barnstable, and the other 9 or whatever's in that list are all little chunks of land, quarter acre here, or third of an acre there, and I don't know how usable it is to us.
But that only probably.
Yeah, and we always manage to get land for them, so I'm not worried about too much about it. So they held one meeting already here at the town, and there's another meeting coming up. You'll see it in the paper if you want to go listen and hear about it. But and they have had some people coming out, I guess, expressing stuff. But we did rather than come to the meeting, we sat down face to face with Tom and told what we thought about it.
May I also comment on that?
Sure, go ahead.
We also had a meeting at the Tribe with a couple of the selectmen. I forget, one selectman? You?
Tim.
No, me and Andy.
You and Andy.
And the new town manager.
Yeah, and Rodney.
At the time.
He was in
soon to be
transition.
Town manager.
And so, obviously, with our land and trust application, land, in our view, is imminent at some point. And so we had a beautiful conversation, actually a little bit historic in the sense that the selectmen and the town manager have never sat at our table. We've sat at their table many times, so especially to talk about land. And got a few lessons out of the way and took them back down the trip to 1870 and talked about anytime you associate the disposal of land, and I'm just saying disposal as in the disposition was the heading on the presentation, that's certainly to get any Native American's attention who believes that is their Aboriginal land. So it was a very interesting conversation that I will summarize and say that we all came to the conclusion that we don't know what we don't know, meaning life tends to start when we show up on board. We appreciate everything that they did in terms of an inventory, taking the inventory that they did of those various parcels, not to be mistaken with the fact that it had never been done. I think the tribe and the town had never talked about it. My mother happened to be a 35-year tax collector in the town, so she knows much about a lot of the losses from the tax takings anyways. And so we basically came to a happy conclusion that we're kind of opposed to the disposal of any land, particularly where we're not at the table at the beginning to have the discussions. And I think we only knew about, the tribe knew about this through me having sat on this committee, and I recognize that it started long before, and we're just taking the direction we were asked to serve in. But hopefully, and I got real encouraging words from the town manager and the two selectmen that were there, is that, we kind of went from we're still here to we now all live here together. Our land, we believe, is imminent. This is no longer a we and they, the tribe and the town. In fact, when we get to tribe time, I'm going to ask you to stop putting that on there. As I am a resident of the town and a participant of the committee, I don't want to be viewed as just the tribe angle.
That's fair enough.
My sister gave her life fighting for housing in this town for our tribal members, and I hope to be able to carry that on in whatever small way I can. But that was a good and interesting meeting, and I'm looking forward to the future of working together.
Okay. All right, that's good. Okay,
Good job.
so where are we at? Oh, on that,
Transparency, open
Yes.
dialogue,
Yes,
it's a start.
yes.
so I don't know,
Commitment out of you guys.
I don't know if there's anything we have to do anymore on that distribution thing. Other than if
I
we
think
want to
the
go
only
through
thing-
that reserve thing some more.
The only thing to point out was that there were, what came out of the discussion between Tom and Bud and I was two possible projects that we could look into, with not a clear understanding about whether we could eventually prove them feasible, but they were promising. One was the VFW site with some surrounding land that potentially, in Tom's view, could become part of it. Whether it required the VFW to transfer the land to some other party or a town entity, or whether the VFW could do something in the way of a joint venture that would move the project forward. I think there are various probably technical ways to structure the project legally so it could move forward, if that was possible. And it was an interesting idea, and Tom thought it was worth looking into, so that was one. And then about a couple blocks away, there was a bunch of little parcels that we thought
Yes.
originally was too small to do anything with, but when Tom put them on a map and showed it to us, he said the intent here was to put them all together and aggregate them and develop something in all those parcels that were contiguous. The problem was there was a couple of them that are sort of privately owned that were
We'll build around,
were right in the middle of all this, and it opened the question of could they in some way be acquired to aggregate the land into a good contiguous piece, several pieces of land that could ultimately be a project down the road somewhere. I don't think either of these were anything but challenging in terms of their concept and approach. But I was sort of encouraged that Tom was looking at possibilities, and with some commitment by the town and maybe some CPA funds and a commitment on the part of the Affordable Housing Trust, that maybe we could move it forward. It would require some study, legal and financial, but it's worth looking into. We left feeling that both of those potential projects were worth looking into to see if they were feasible.
Sounds interesting. I mean, I guess kind of gets to my point about talking about what I was talking about, like a pipeline.
Yeah.
If that's one of the opportunities, what's the parcel, the amount, the different addresses, a possible, and just, brief explanation of what the challenges may be.
Yeah.
Just so you can say, okay, now you're looking at a roadmap of here's 6, 7, 8 opportunities for affordable housing, and then it may, they may kind of like, almost like a raceway. This one's going down the road, all of a sudden we hit a snag, but this other one is still going, and this one might pass it. But if you're looking at the opportunities, it's not, I hate to say not focusing on one, so this way if we have a snag, there's still other ones that we can still continue to work on and develop.
Well, that's the first time we pulled out when we sat down with Tom. We were able to pull these out as potentials.
I mean, that does sound like there's some challenges there when you have some personal property kind of.
Yeah.
Right.
That's.
Chairman, Mayor? I think what you're describing sounds like a Gantt chart where we have all of these projects at various stages, and some of them are just the idea, some of them are still just land. But when you talk about seeing where one might be here, one might be here, one might be here. There's a block on phase 2 of this, so now what's the next looking one? If we had a snapshot of that, I'm a more visual learner.
Yeah.
Love to read, but that stuff puts you to sleep. But if you had a visual map, like a Gantt chart that was color-coded to differentiate the various parcels and what some of the next steps are. It sounds like that's what you've described to me.
And you can, call it that type of Gantt chart.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Gantt charts, but that's all right, we could do one.
I
had them at work.
And again, I'm visual as well, and I think but it's also easier for someone, even the selectmen, if you're looking for a quick update, something very visual we can look at briefly. If we have a 52-page report, we're reading it. Oh, did you catch the page 32 at the halfway down the bottom? That was the most important part.
Yeah.
No, you should have said that to begin with, because you scan through it and you don't catch it all. But again, a summarized version of
We could put something together that has our thoughts on it, but we have no authority on any of it.
Absolutely, but again, in a perfect world, what would you guys, what would your
Yes,
committee like to see?
Okay.
As your top priorities, and then let's see if we can focus in and say, okay, what's the restrictions on each one? Where are we at in each step of the way? Do we need support from Tom, the planning board? Do we need to write a feasibility study, a bid? What is it on each one? And then just.
Maybe we could put together something.
And I hate to just come here asking for stuff from you, but. Sorry.
With Tom's help, yes. With Tom's help, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll talk some more with Tom and see what we can get with that. And we were just sort of rummaging around in that whole big document of the land they had, and trying to figure where something was at in there. I had brought up something that had been proposed to me. There are some property that the town has taken. There were 5 parcels when I last talked to you, and there was a question of whether they could be renovated and made into affordable homes, which is a good way to add ones on there. And 2 weeks ago, I met with the individual that gave me that, and I said, will you please give me the lot numbers? Where are these things at? I need to know specifically where they're at. And he said, oh, we got 2 more. So he says he's up to 7. But he has not returned to me one location yet. I can't tell where they are. Except the 2, I think, were just in the paper recently. The health department was condemning some place or something or other. So I think they're ones that the health department has taken control of. But if the guy is good to his word and everything else, he would help with the restoration of them and everything. He would help put that all together. I'll have to see him again and beat him up again. And I did. And I talked to him. I thought I'd have. He said, yeah. And I thought I'd get it that night, but I didn't. Haven't gotten it since. So we'll leave it on the table that there are some units that might be able to be restored and made into affordable housing. But that's all I can say about it right now, because I don't have any details. Under the new business, I put in the meeting house project report, and I guess, Maria, I'll just give you, who we were talking with Melissa, and if I understood it correctly, and if I didn't, correct me if you think differently, I thought she was saying that those units are not going to be 40Bs anymore.
Did she give it to you something in a report? Was it written or just?
No,
conversation you
just
had?
Conversation.
Informal.
Right outside the door here.
Yeah, we don't. It's my understanding we don't need to file for 40B once the rod's issued on our land.
Okay.
Filing for 40B would force us to open the housing up to the public. It's my understanding.
I always wondered about that.
So we've been playing the time game here, real
Yeah.
careful about how fast and far we move on the project. But, when funds are available, if they can, like we did the roads,
Yeah.
now working on the utilities, certainly going to do that. But as far as the actual funding, we haven't submitted any is it low-income tax credit applications, although,
Yeah, I think she
Doing
didn't say that it was a done deal, but
Yeah.
you're looking at that, going that way, maybe.
uh,
Now, I guess my question would be to you, whether you know or whether you could find out. If they don't file as a 40B and they develop these, being on Indian property and whatnot, are we going to get any special provisions to get credit for these 52
Will it be
units?
on
Or
the subsidized housing inventory? It's a good question. I mean, I don't know offhand. I think we'd have to do.
maybe when you get some time, contact somebody down the
Yeah,
state
I could do that.
and see what they think about it, because
I believe it does contribute to our inventory.
You believe
To
it
the town-
does?
Yeah, we went out and, Leon,
Okay.
did you ever meet Leon Jacobs?
Yes.
oh, yes, super
Leon and
guy.
I went up to
Wonderful.
DHCD when we were trying to see what the state had for funds, and they were very anxious because of its contribution that it would be, and that they knew that the land would be in trust and that we were
Yeah.
doing a time game.
Well, that's encouraging, because I guess I heard a sense that it wasn't that way.
Yeah.
Really?
I would like
Yeah.
to think that you're
But,
correct.
but we didn't have
I
it,
would like to think I'm right too. You make me have to go and question it, but we did have the conversation. I don't recall the gentleman's name, but I will confirm it again.
well, we can also, you can
Yeah.
track through them too and see what they say, see what the state says about it. Because they're the guys who are going to eventually put it on that inventory or not put it on the inventory.
Right.
And we have other things like group homes and these CCD ones or whatever they are on there that are who knows what, you know.
Does, a little bit off track, I apologize. Does anyone know, did Del Sol get sold?
Did what?
Plaza Del Sol down on 130, did that get
As far
sold?
as he has been, it's been for sale for at least 3 years, maybe 4 years. Far as, I hadn't heard of him selling it yet. He is not around town. I haven't seen him around town at all.
Peter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen him
Yeah,
either.
I
I've been
talked to
by
him quite a
2
bit. He was
times.
always a big proponent of affordable. He wanted to see about maybe making some units in there affordable units. And,
I mean, when you talk about renovating existing stock, I mean, I think that would be a great public housing project right there.
supposedly, we went down this road, okay? And what the town came back with was too extensive. We don't want to get into that at all. They didn't want to, it's in a residential neighborhood, the zoning and stuff in there would cause some problems, I think, or something like that, I don't know. It would almost be like dormitory rooms. That's where New Seabury went. New Seabury wanted to buy that and do that very thing with it. They were gonna make dormitory rooms in there. And that was a no-no in that neighborhood, you couldn't do that. Matter, he couldn't do what he did anyways, but he had a legal case against the town, and everybody kind of gave a little bit and allowed him some 9 units or whatever it is in there, that he could rent at affordable rates. And he does have very affordable rates in there. I sat down and I saw what his rates were, they weren't bad. But it is a place that needs a lot of renovation.
So bad. It needs to just kind of come down to the ground. They actually offered it to the tribe, and we just didn't have the capacity to
Okay.
take on another project. We're still trying to
Yeah,
deal with what
sure,
we have in our hands.
sure.
But does transitional housing or emergency shelters, does that count towards anything in stock? Probably not.
Not in terms of the subsidized housing inventory, I don't believe, yeah. It's got to be deed restricted, and be at least an apartment, fully equipped apartment. Although there is a potential for, I guess, beds to be included under some circumstances, but not generally,
Really?
Yeah.
yeah.
See, when I listen to Mr. Cotton talk about, the future, the 5 years, the expansions, things come to mind like Del Sol, like what is that, what's it gonna be doing in 5 years? It could be a nice public housing development if we had the capacity and funds to do so. Or, even more so, I have a tendency to think about what happens when Richard Halpern moves to his next chapter, because the wigwam has a lot of history to us. And if you think that someday it's always just going to be this, what it is now, I don't really believe that. I believe that it's someday, when Mr. Halpern's chapter goes on to the next page, that thing will have a for sale sign or something, but I think we need to look outside of the box and think of what is here right now and what's it going to be in 10 years. What's the likelihood that it's still going to be what it is today? and then start to think strategically about, those opportunities.
And what we were doing was, for now anyways, not that we put any of those away, but it is much easier for now to take a chunk of land and build from scratch on that piece of land. It costs us, the town, a lot less money to do that. If we were to take some place that already exists, like the motel over there, we might have to just knock it all down and start from scratch in there. And there'd be more expense to do that, and I'm not sure we would get that covered under development. Maybe it would.
For public housing, I mean, there's lots of hard money out there for Indian housing, but public housing in general has a heck of a lot more.
We know that stuff is done, because you know that like Yarmouth and whatnot, and those places out there, they have oodles of motels that have been converted to that stuff. So we know it's done.
So the meeting that I attended, I think it was Monday or Tuesday of last week, it was held down near the courthouse, the Harbor Conference Room. They pretty much had everybody from every agency there, and then at the end, the facilitator categorized the concerns into 3 areas, and if you ask me all 3, I won't remember off the top of my head, but the one I raised my hand for was to, I offered to work on the task force to identify more affordable units, existing units, on the Cape. So I guess that's what kind of got my wheels turning in that area.
We certainly could keep that on our potential list as something we might further look into. I was new at the time when that stuff came up, and the town kind of poo-pooed it and went away from it, so I said, okay, I'll walk away too, because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think that's how our housing commission felt about the Del Sol. They were like, a little daunting.
Yeah.
I'll see. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've got
No
some
more
further
time.
looking into on the meeting
gone.
house
Okay,
project thing.
gone.
Now, I brought it in, I don't know whether anybody wants to look at this or whether you've already seen it out of the paper. We had an article in here on the Affordable Housing Committee raises Falmouth Road issue, from our last meeting. But in addition, on the backside of it, there's an editorial that has to do with it, and if anyone wants to look at that and see what's there.
I didn't see
It was nicely done. I'm glad, particularly like the editorial and whatnot was really good. You already gave us the story. I have no other news or correspondence. Do I have any other business I should bring up?
What is the status of, remember we were talking at last meeting about you going to go and try to move forward the one project as opposed to both?
Yeah, well, that's some of what we talked about. We went, at the selectmen's meeting, we were trying to get them to move forward some of that, but we got all tangled up in a lot of other things, so when we left there, Andy seemed to be in favor of the kind of thing that we would be in favor of, if we could some way word an RFP that would have multiple facets that they could come through and bid on.
So right now it's...
But I walked away from that thinking that nothing was going to be done, to be honest with you.
All right.
Well,
But I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I think our plea to the Board of Selectmen was that we preserve the ability for a prospective developer responding to an RFP to submit a proposal for either one or the other or both combined and see what you get, and encourage broader participation. Because it may not be an advantage in my mind. It may not be an advantage to combine those two sites. Some developers may see that as more of a liability than an advantage.
But I did talk to Valley Construction, who does a lot of these affordable housing stuffs on the Cape. And I asked him that question, and he said, well, we have no problems doing mobile. And I said, even though they're not adjacent to each other, they're apart from us, in the same town but apart. And he said, no, we have something like that going on right now in Barnstable. So he seemed to be okay with doing it. I don't know how it would come in, whether it would come in less money or more money or what, I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm saying that not because I think it isn't feasible to put them together. I think that is one option.
Yeah.
But I think it may also be an attractive option for some of the smaller private nonprofits that develop affordable housing to look at one site or the other and say that's within their capacity.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get more proposals that way. And some of them may be, as individual developments on those sites separately, may be more interesting and acceptable architecturally and with their the way they are structuring their mission to house some of the members of the community that need it.
maybe more acceptable than a developer coming in and saying, this is the way I'm gonna do both sites together, take it or leave it.
So, but does something, doesn't have to be, does the vote have to go to the town, is my question.
It seems to be what they were saying that night at the selectmen's meeting is, no, we didn't have to bring this up at a town meeting, that the selectmen had the capabilities to take action on their own with some of this. I don't know whether I heard that correctly, but that's not what I thought I heard. Did I hear that?
So, this is, I mean, it hit me like a truck, so on at the last meeting, so, it's trying to catch up on.
Yeah.
But you were correct when you explained it was A, A and B, or just A, or just C, or just B.
Yeah.
Right.
That understanding was, I think we were all in agreement that made sense,
Yeah.
but I don't think we did ratify or,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what the process was at that point. But I think Andy, myself, and I believe the other, I don't want to speak for them, but I believe their feeling was that just made sense. I don't know why anyone would think otherwise.
But
Well, I
is it
believe the
required that something has to go, like originally what I had heard, and I don't know if it's true, this is again what I heard, is that in order for, let's say that what we're going to do is we're going to get a builder to come in, he's going to design it, build it, and manage it, right? And we're going to give him a 99-year lease to the land or something, right? Or sell it to him, one or the other. Do we need to go to the town meeting and get approval to dispose of the land? That was the question I really had, that I didn't hear that.
I would think yes.
Well, see,
I did too, but I didn't.
and the problem is, and maybe it was because I'll claim new guy
Yeah.
on the block.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear that question.
Okay.
So I didn't understand, I felt it was more like, what do you think?
That's kind of why we were pushing though for getting it now, because supposedly the warrant articles are already supposed to be there. They're supposed to be there in July.
Because from my understanding, it has to be, if it's not stated on our agenda for like a vote,
Yeah.
then we can't vote anyways. So if that was just, you know what I mean? So if that was just presented to us as a discussion,
Yeah.
well, it's a discussion. We can't vote on something that's just a discussion. So if it was on our agenda, meaning, now we have a meeting on Monday. So my question to you would be, if that is something that, and maybe Tom can clarify this between tomorrow and tomorrow night's planning
Tom
board meeting.
Fadula or Tom?
Correct.
Okay.
He has time, if that's the case, we could put it on Monday's meeting to put it to a vote if that's required. And again, I'm going to claim
Okay.
new guy status on that. I'm not really sure if that's.
So maybe the action item I should
It's only
take.
good for so long, though.
Huh?
That's only good for so long.
Oh, I know.
But use it as long as you can.
But I do know it wasn't on our agenda for a vote.
No, we know it
can't
wasn't.
vote on it. So, and it was not on our agenda for a vote. So at that point, it's just, you coming in was a discussion.
Yes,
Well,
that's fine.
There's a couple of issues here that I thought were brought up. One was voting to transfer the land, and then there was some discussion by a couple of the selectmen, I can't remember who said this, but you didn't really have to transfer the land until way down the road, and you could be doing planning and moving ahead, development planning, until that point. And transferring the land is, in fact, the last thing you do when everything is lined up and you got a financial closing, and then you transfer the land when everybody is absolutely convinced the documents say what they need to say to protect the town. So that's correct, in my view. The land doesn't get transferred until way down the road, and there's a lot of work to do up to that point.
You're absolutely correct. And I took it the same way. And I think the whole idea is, don't wait for the transfer of the land.
Right.
Keep going forward with what you need to do, because that's the easy part.
Right, and the other piece of this is the RFP, which is sort of the beginning of this, or near the beginning of this process. That's where we were commenting on preserving the option in the replies to the RFP to go either A or B or A and B.
Correct.
And that's the
that-
town manager's department that has to put that RFP together.
And
They've got the guts of it already, they just don't have the A, B, C kind of combination.
well, that's what I was going to say, is that my understanding from Tom Mayo is that there is a draft of the RFP.
Yes, I have a copy of it.
And that those options do not exist in that current draft.
No.
And that is the point of our concern.
Okay, so I guess my question, who drafted up that RFP?
Tom Mayo.
Okay, so,
Or, I
Or-
don't think Joyce did, I think Tom did it, but
all right, so my question
I got a
is,
copy of it from Tom, and
But
it's
that wasn't
both,
sent out yet,
two
right?
pieces of, I thought it was going to be, but it hasn't been evidently.
so I guess if it hasn't, that's probably a good thing. I
Right
guess my
now,
question is,
yeah.
can we revise it now,
Yes.
and then?
We
let's
don't
just
know.
get this ball rolling?
We have not been part of that process.
Gotcha.
I got a copy of it when I went into him, he says, oh, I got it here, and he gave me a copy of this RFP.
And it was
Okay.
So
presented as,
is the process through Tom Fadala, then through Tom Mayo? I'm assuming? So wouldn't this board kind of
We kind of look at it and review.
discuss that
and
with
recommend-
Tom
which Tom?
Fadala
Yeah.
to find out where is the status of this Tom? Because I'm assuming Tom's involved in this, right?
I don't know that.
Well-
I have my doubts.
See, again,
We were left out of this process, so we really don't understand.
We were pushing for him to get an RFP out,
And
to do some
we
work,
thought the
to
RFP
get
was
something
going to come back
developed.
to us because it was the 209 Barnstable Road we've been working on for the last 2 years. Never
At the
came
last,
never came
at the
back to
last
us.
minute,
Alright.
he gave me that piece of paper that had both properties in that one RFP. Matter of fact, you know who is named in the RFP? The Affordable Housing Trust is the originator of the RFP. Now, they never had a meeting, so I don't know how that came from them.
Well, and structurally, I think that would be fine. If in fact, everybody understood
must be
the
time to go
Affordable
home.
Housing Trust is doing this, that is an appropriate implementation body to keep this, to start this and keep this moving. But there's been no announced process as far as we know.
all right, so the addressing question for the RFP, and can I just have the address again, just to clarify? Was it, what, for the RFP?
The
That, we're
RFP,
not sure if you,
the RFP is for, as I understand it, for 209 Barnstable and 950 Falmouth combined,
Yes.
209 Constable,
Yeah.
right? Old Barnstable Road
okay,
and 950 Falmouth Road.
And it's,
But the reason why, as I understand it, the town manager's office held this up is because of the feasibility study at 950 Falmouth not being completed. So everybody was waiting for that. And meanwhile, we have this draft of the RFP sitting there, waiting for the feasibility to be completed, with only one option in it, that the two of them would be considered combined in the RFP. And that is my concern, is when the time comes, when and if we know 950 Falmouth could be, there is a possibility to combine the two, that we keep the options open of going either A or B or A and B.
so at that point, so if it hasn't been submitted, it'd be a good thing, because then you can change it, modify it, to include both A, B, and or,
Right. Right now, it's just a draft, as far as I know.
okay.
yeah, says draft on it.
All right, so I'm gonna check on the
It's
status of that.
13 pages long.
Maybe I can, at worst case scenario, get a timeline or time frame of what they were thinking
Yeah.
of, what's the delay
I mean,
on,
it's 13 pages
950.
long, so it's got a lot of stuff in it.
okay.
You want
And
to
it's, huh?
pass it over to Jen?
Yeah, you want me? It calls out the
I'd love to
Affordable
see
Housing
myself.
Trust and Selectmen, I think. Or Town Manager, I don't know which, both. Okay, I don't know. Anything else? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
September 1st. Coming up next.
Good meeting, bud.